Hello everybody, and welcome to the last of the ASC's online series for 2020. Next year's lineup is already looking great, and here's sending festive final thank yous to our sponsors for keeping the lights on while conferences are down. Speaking of which, we seem to have turned a bit of a corner on the COVID front, so do pencil in an ASC conference, London, November 2021. For now, we'll continue with a remote approach. This next session, Segmentation and Visualisation, has been prepared and recorded by Jenő and Renáta of DataExpert. We've also tried to add an element of conference Q&A by recording a video call with John McConnel of Analytical People playing the role of our audience and asking questions throughout. We start now with everybody introducing themselves. Hope you enjoy the session.
Welcome. My name is Renáta Horváth, and I am the head of the data visualization and BI team at DataExpert. I graduated as an applied mathematician, and I'm working in market research more than 5 years.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jenő. I'm working for DataExpert around 6 years now. I'm a biologist. I've got a PhD in biological sciences. You may ask that how market research and biology connected to each other, but the answer is simple, because I'm using similar statistical methods in both biology and both in market research, like segmentation. I'm a senior DP data processing expert in DataExpert.
My name is John McConnell. As Matt said, I run a firm called Analytical People, and we're a consulting company that specializes in statistics and latterly data science. Everybody has to do data science these days, don't they? So we're practitioners. We do a lot of work within market research in the usual suspects. So segmentations, as we're about to talk about today, key driver analysis, conjoints, and so on and so forth. So I'm really looking forward to hearing the presentation.
Thank you, John. Okay, well, thank you everybody. Let's get into the session.
During this session, I would like to introduce you into market segmentation. Let's see how we are doing this at DataExpert. Good interpretation of any kind of results is very important. Therefore, we are using dynamic dashboards for visualizing segmentation. By the end of this presentation, you will be able to find your focus in marketing on a more effective way. Firstly, I will briefly take a look at what is segmentation itself. Then we'll show you its application via a common example. In our third section, I will present a dynamic dashboard. And finally, we'll give you a short summary. So what is segmentation? Since resources are very limited, leaders and decision makers should stay focused on how to make the best out of the business. People are different and also behave differently. Consequently, they can be sorted into groups by shared psychological and physical factors. The market segmentation is a process that can help in finding the best marketing techniques and building stronger relationships with customers, simply because you know them better. There are many different ways how to do segmentation. We are using a multi-step workflow. First, we prepare the input applying principal components analysis. Then we identify the groups using cluster analysis. In the first step, we validate these groups by discriminant analysis. And finally, we visualize the results in the dynamic dashboards. Now I'm going to show you these steps via an example. Many people like ice cream, thus we have chosen this topic to investigate its ice cream consumption habits. We ask consumers to rate pairs of statements on a 5-point scale. For example, do they like ice cream cones or not? And here are some more examples, but we have 4 other statements and a total of 7 variables with scores from 1 to 5. Our first step is preparing the raw data for further calculation using principal components analysis. These 7 variables represent 7 dimensions of the same phenomenon, thus they are more or less correlated to each other. The principal component analysis is a method for reducing the number of dimensions, keeping as much explanation of the variance in the original variables as possible. By applying it, we are able to reduce the number of dimensions to 3 uncorrelated principal components, which explain more than 76% of the total variance, which is good. So we can use these 3 principal components as inputs in the core calculation of our process for the cluster analysis, which is the second step. We use k-means clustering in this case. It is beneficial to investigate the behavior of the data first, so we determined 5 groups. It is clearly seen on the figure that there are no extremely small groups, which means, in other words, that there are no outliers, no few data points grouped together. However, these groups are highly overlapping. Therefore, we decrease the number of dimensions here as well. So we use 3 groups, which step was resulted in a more clear clustering, more clear separation. And also we can explain the characteristics of these groups more easier in the more details than of the 5-group version. Our first step is the validation of the clusters by discriminant analysis. Discriminant analysis is applied on the same inputs as the cluster analysis. However, it performs different calculations for determining the groups. Then we can check the proportion of correctly identified groups crossing the results of the 2 methods. Here we get an average of 98 and 99% of matching. Thus we can confirm that the clusters properly assign the data into 3 groups. By now we have the first part of the job, so we can have a coffee and rest. But of course we have the final step, the visualization of these results. Now let's see how many extras can be done with dashboards. This is a dynamic dashboard built-in display area showing the results of our study. The first 2 pages help to compare the results of the clusters on the left-hand side and the discriminant analysis on the right hand. The values also confirm that these 2 different approaches determine the groups almost identically. Moreover, we can get some information about the characteristics of each group by comparing the statements correspond to places and habits, or flavors and styles. On this page, a substantial difference can be spotted in the first row, so between the first and the second groups, according to which people in the first group like traditional flavors. However, the second group is the opposite to this. People are more likely to try new flavors.
Jenő, can I ask you, you've just shown us a nicely packaged example which has, 3 clear questions, and we produce 3 nice clear factors. Is it true to say that the approach that you take and the visualizations that you produce can be scaled? So they're not limited to 3 factors, 5 factors, or 3 questions and 5 questions. And related to that, does there have to be a factor analysis? Because I think, as you know, sometimes segmentation is done on the original variables. So I guess 2 questions in one. Can we scale the number of questions, and do we always do a factor analysis to feed your visualizations?
Thank you. This is a good question, John. Yes, you pointed out correctly that there are many ways how to do segmentation. I showed only one example. We used this factor or principal component analysis for reducing the number of dimensions on the same phenomenon. And after that, we applied the cluster analysis and validated by the discriminant analysis. And we resulted in segments that can be characterized in different aspects of the raw data as well. So the methods and approaches can be changed or modified, or of course we can do segmentation on the raw data itself. So it depends on the questions we ask and the answers we would like to answer in this respect. So yes, we can do this on many different ways. So it's not carved in stone.
Actually, related to that then, with the visualizations, I guess you could do both, couldn't you? You could visualize how clear are the clusters when you just look at the raw variables, and then you could flip to factor and PCA and maybe look at, what does that picture look like? And then your visualization would help you decide which was the best way to go. Is that fair to say?
Yes, because in the dashboard that I've shown you, there were several pages. One page showed the raw data, so the answers given to each pair of statements, and we can also do some segmentation by looking at these raw data, so we can do some manual work at this step. However, if we have another method that determines the clusters, the segments, by different statistical approaches, we can combine the visualization and check which clusters correspond to which statements, and how the respondents evaluate each of these statements, and we can profile all of these on manual steps or on statistical steps, and validate by visualizing them.
I got it. So in a sense, you've shown us one path through a problem, but because you can visualize at different points through that process and in different ways, you could, for example, compare different clustering algorithms, see what k-means does, got it, see what hierarchical does, and so on. Okay, that's really clear. Thank you.
But let's put some colors into these graphics. And here is a summary of the proportion of each groups in different categories. We can compare people by gender, country, or age, and we can play with some filterings as well. I will select the youngest age group, and you will see that the proportion of the third cluster, cluster number 3, is increasing to 68% in males. Here are the males, and you can check the green bar. I select the youngest age group, and it immediately recalculated. Let me select only females now. You will see that the proportion of the clusters became very different among the different countries. For example, the second cluster is reaching up to 42% in France, but dropping down to 25% in Germany. Now check out the blue bars in France and Germany. But first, I show the original pictures. Now I select females only, and the values recalculated within a second. You can see the changes immediately. And finally, here are some more colors. The summary indicates the distribution of the values given by the respondents to each of the statements, and the mean scores are shown on the right-hand side. We can also filter the data by country, gender, or age. Here are the filtering groups, and the values will be recalculated immediately. I will select Switzerland soon, and right after, you will notice that the last two rows will change. We lose the magenta color. So I'm selecting Switzerland now, and the magenta disappeared. Now I will further filter the data to the youngest age group, and you will see the average values for the first row, which is about the timing of ice cream consumption. Somebody likes to eat ice creams only summers, while others eat during the whole year. The mean values will increase in this row, but in the fifth row, about the places, anywhere or any special places, is significantly decreasing. The color of these rows will also change spectacularly. So take a look at the first and the fifth rows, and I will select the youngest age group, and that's it. You can see the changes now.
So when you get to the point where you've got the clusters that you're you're happy with, or certainly your first candidate clusters. How would you visualize them and start to give them some meaningful names?
Thanks for the question. I would like to show the dashboard. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we are viewing the dashboard. And if we are doing some cluster filtering, this is the raw data. You can see that it is quite negative. And if I filter it for the first cluster, we can see that three of the questions, three of the statements are quite high numbers, have quite high numbers. This is the almost exclusive ice cream with my family friends, traditional flavors, and I can buy ice cream anywhere. So depending on what are the statements on in the clusters, we can name them. And it is more alternative and more flexible if we can check them. So for example, for the cluster 2, I always try new flavors, and I usually eat ice cream when I am not at home. And if we check the third one, it is the confection is exclusively for ice cream, and I usually eat ice cream with fruit and toppings. So if we consider these statements, we can name these clusters, and it is helping us how to name them. So for example, we can name the third one as the confectioneries lovers, or the second one we can name as out-of-home flower explorers, or the first one we can name them as eating in tribe, traditional ice creamers. So it is depending on the imagination how we would like to name them, and how we could name these clusters.
That's really good. And which cluster would you say you belong to?
Well, I'm the first. I like the traditional flavors, and I usually eat ice creams with my family, mostly with my husband.
That's great. Thank you.
And finally, I can use some more filters, but let me ask questions before. What do you think? Do females eat ice cream alone or more socially? Do they like new or traditional flavors? The answers are in the dashboard. Please take a look at the second and the third rows, and you will get the answers within a second after I choose the right filtering. The mean values will drop down from 2 to 1.86 and 1.57 respectively for the second and the third values. I select females now, and also the colors change strikingly. Now we can sum up that girls in Switzerland are more likely to eat ice cream during the whole year with their family and friends. They like the traditional flavors but do not have a preference where they eat ice cream. And last but not least, they like fruits and toppings either with or without ice cream cones. What an easy way to find the answers to your questions. Making decisions based on these dynamic dashboards are much easier than looking at tens or hundreds of tables with values in it, with too much numbers in it. Sorry, dashboards are eye-catching and easy to understand. The entire process is clear and simple. Now I've got all of the information and all of the knowledge about people and ice cream and their habits. Therefore, it is time to realize my dreams. But please do not tell to my boss that I would like to start a global ice cream company. Jokes aside, if I were the CEO of such a company in a real life, I would be able to redefine marketing strategies in different countries or attract possible buyers because I know their habits, the behavior, and their needs.
So once you've with the visualization that you've got, once you've got to the end of the cluster journey and you've arrived at your cluster-based segments, is that the end of the story? Do you stop segmenting at that point, or is there anything else that you might look to do visually?
Of course, we can continue everything and on the basis of these segments, because if we ask, for example, in the next year, in a similar questionnaire, how respondents changed or like ice cream in the summer or in the winter or whatever, we can put them into these profiles according to the previous result, and we can directly create marketing strategies for the different profiles, and we can target them according to their preferences, their habits, and so on, or even we can do a different approach for this segmentation in different aspects of life. For example, how people like to visit different places, how they behave in new or in common places, or buying something. So we have plenty of different questions that we need to answer in order to know our customers or clients better, and create specific advertisements or strategies for involving them into our services or whatever.
Yeah, or create them special packages based on their needs.
Got it. Yeah. So you can visualize beyond the questions that go into building the cluster-based segments, and you can start to develop strategies for marketing or customer service or whatever it happens to be. Okay, got it. Thank you.
And near the end of my presentation, I would like to give you some short summary. Here are a list of main benefits of segmentation, and I've presented only one possible way how to determine your segments and how to facilitate decision making. There are many ways, but this is a useful and easy way. Last but not least, it is important to highlight here that the integration of different approaches and techniques, as you see, we use different methods from principal component analysis to discriminant analysis and visualization, can make your life easier in a data-driven world. Lastly, I would like to thank the contribution and support of my colleagues and everybody for making this presentation feasible. And thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it.
Something that's creeping out to me is the fact that this visualization element can help communicate to clients a rather complex process. You talk about segmentation and data, and it's a bit hard to hold in your head if it's not your day job. But do you have experience of that with end clients, Renáta or Jenő?
Yeah, we are doing different segmentations and clusters for the customers and for the clients, and with these dashboards and visualizations, they are get a hint how they are how they can group their customers, or what are the typical customers they have, what are the connections between each statements, and these statement connections defining the group of customers. So it is really helpful to create strategies, and it is making much easier to get a strategy for these clients.
Thank you. So it must help the penny drop, as it were. You just have that aha moment because you can actually see it.
Yeah, especially.
Thanks. So all that's left for me to say is thank you all again. Thank you, John. Thank you, Renáta, and thank you, Jenő. And I hope you all have a great Christmas. And I look forward to seeing you all hopefully in person next year. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
Thank you. We are
Thank
looking
you.
forward
Thank
to
you.
it.
Bye.
Bye.